I have been investing money for the last 5 years. I watched tons of videos on YouTube about how invest your money, and that's how I learned most of the things. And it was working pretty well until I moved to the Netherlands. Turns out, most of the videos on YouTube aim to American investors. And Europe, and Netherlands in particular, does many things completely differently compared to United States. It took me some time to figure out the European market and continue investing with my strategy. This video is mainly focused on the Netherlands because that's where I live, but many things are really similar in other European countries, so it will be also useful if you live in a different country in the EU. Let's dive into it. Let's start with the investment brokers, or investment apps how they sometimes called. What is actually making a good broker? To me, it's two things. First is how well established the company is, how trustworthy they are, what's their history, how long they've been on the market, and the second criteria is to find as low fees as possible, but without compromising the first criteria. You should know that in Netherlands you are insured on 20,000 euros per investment broker by Dutch National Bank. It's also called investment compensation. I think in most of the European countries, at least in Western Europe, it works similarly. So as long as you're not exceeding this amount per broker, you should be fine trying different ones, but it's still not a great experience if your broker will go down and you will need to figure out how to get this money back. That's why I personally prefer to rely on trustworthy brokers in the first place. First, my personal favorite broker is Interactive Brokers. I have been using them even before I moved to the Netherlands, and it's still my primary broker after I moved here. It's a highly trustworthy company that's been on the market for more than 50 years already. It has millions of investors and billions in capital. If you have been already using the Interactive Brokers and you decided to move to the European Union, you should know that you will need to transfer all the funds and all your investments to their European entity. Their European office is in Ireland, so you will be operating with the Irish office. It's not a hard procedure, you just contact to their support center and they will guide you through the step-by-step how to transfer all the funds and all your investments. I went through this process and it wasn't hard at all. It took me, I think, about a couple of weeks to transfer everything I have from my American account to my European one. Interactive Brokers has also one of the lowest fees on the European market. The UI may be not the most friendly one because originally it was a trading platform and they're still trying to get to these new beautiful designs of the trading apps and they're still a little bit behind. But if you are a long-term investor like me and you're sending money once a month, it's not a huge issue to use this interface once in a while, but at least you will know your money and investments are safe. I highly recommend using them as your main broker in the Netherlands. Another well-established broker here is Degiro, or Degiro if you want to pronounce it more in an English manner. They are well loved by many people here because they are based in the Netherlands, but they work in many other European countries as well. They recently haven't allowed to open the account unless you have a European passport, but recently they changed this policy and now you can even open an account with a residence permit. So I did it. I think it's a pretty good application. Overall, they have a little bit better UI than Interactive Brokers, and overall it's a great platform if you want to diversify your brokerage account. So small portion of my portfolio I actually store on Degiro. Another one I want to mention is German-based Trade Republic. They recently gained some traction and they started even issuing credit cards, and their marketing is actually almost everywhere. They kinda remind me of Revolut in some ways. It's a similar design, similar marketing strategies. I'm a little bit cautious about them as a main investment apps. I heard so many different rumors online about how bad their support and sometimes money couldn't be frozen. It's never happened to me though. It works perfectly and I use them mainly to store my spare cash because they have the highest interest rates on cash in the market right now, and it's 4%. Savings accounts in most of the European countries, including Netherlands, are protected by 100,000 insurance, so it's pretty safe to store on savings account up to this amount. The other one I wanted to mention is Trading 212. It's a UK-based broker and they're famous for their zero fees trading policy. It's really good if you're doing a lot of trading or you want to buy ETFs frequently. Be aware that zero fees usually means they're making money somewhere else. In case of trading 212, they do a share lending, which means they're lending your entities somewhere else. You're usually pretty good protected from any of the risks, but you just need to be aware of this and maybe research this topic a little bit in details if you're planning to use them as your main brokerage account. Also, as far as I know, you cannot transfer ETFs from their brokerage to another broker if you want, so you will be forced to sell the ETFs and then buy them somewhere else. So far, it's not a big deal in the Netherlands because of the current tax system, but it might change later. I will talk about this a little bit more later. Of course, there are more brokers available in the Netherlands and in the other European countries, but those I mentioned should be enough to start. I also didn't mention any crypto brokers, and I think it's a little bit scary to recommend anything. Usually you would want to use hardware wallets if you are really serious about crypto. I'm only doing my small part of the portfolio into crypto investing, and for that I use different places, to be honest. I bought some crypto on my bank account, which is a Revolut application. I also bought some on Exodus software wallet, and recently I discovered Bivavo because they have the lowest fees, so I also buying some crypto there. Crypto is a small part of my portfolio, so I don't worry too much about the number of money I have in there, but if you're planning to buy a lot of crypto, you would better research how to store it safely. Now let's get to the tax system. Here I'm gonna be talking only about the Netherlands, so if you're watching from another EU country, just click on the next chapter and continue watch the video from there. In the Netherlands, savings and investments taxed on the separate category called Box 3. This tax is calculated on all of your assets such as shares or ETFs or savings. You also have a tax-free allowance, which in 2024 is 57,000 euro per person. So on the first 57,000 euro you won't be taxed at all. In 2024 you pay 36% tax on any taxable income from your savings and investments. It's actually up from 32% in 2023. But how they decide how much money you actually made is very interesting in Netherlands. It's actually made based on the assumption. The Dutch tax office calculates this assumption of your returns based on the type of the assets you have. For example, it's different for savings, for investments, and for your debts. The assumption returns for 2024 is 1.03% for savings, 6.04% for any investments, and 2.47% for your debts. After calculating this provisional growth of your assets minus your debts and minus this tax allowance, government taxes you 36% on anything remains. This system is highly controversial. It had a lot of conversations about it in recent years, because in theory you can just lose money in the 1 year and still pay taxes on some fictional returns. But the Dutch government office right now working on a new system that will be apparently introduced in 2027. I think they will introduce just regular capital gain taxes on your real return when you're selling the assets. At least it's what most of European countries uses. But until then, we're stuck with the current system. If they introduce it in 2027, I will definitely make a video, so don't forget to subscribe to not miss it. Another thing you should know, if you live here as an expat and you have 30% ruling program, in that case, for the first 5 years here, you don't need to pay any of these taxes in box 3. You don't even need to declare your savings or your bank accounts to the Dutch tax office. It's a massive bonus, especially if you have a large portfolio for the first years living here. Bear in mind that they're constantly changing 30% ruling program, so this box 3 evasion can also change. So maybe it will be less years in the future, or maybe they will cancel it altogether. Dividend taxation is completely separated from all of this, and it's taxed on flat fee of 15%, and usually your broker will do the taxes for you. But double check with with your brokerage account. Now, in the last section, let's talk about ETFs. I won't be diving too much into details of the different types of ETFs, but if you want me to cover this topic in details, let me know in the comments. And if these requests will get enough comments, I will record a separate video about this. You should know that American ETFs and European ETFs are completely different, so you cannot buy American ETFs residing in Europe and vice versa. As I already said, with interactive brokers, for example, after you transfer your account to Europe, these ETFs will be still on your account, but you just cannot buy the new ones and you can only sell the old one. Also, most of the brokers in Europe trade in euros instead of American dollars, so if you still have the former ETFs and you get a dividends in US dollars, for example, you will need to convert the currency to start using the euros on your account. The good news though, it's most of the ETFs in America has some kind of alternative in European market. For example, my favorite Vanguard ETF Total World, called in Europe VWCA, and it's very close to American VT. Usually all Vanguard ETFs has some kind of alternative in European market, and it's similar to other providers like iShares by BlackRock, for example, and others. Before moving to the EU, I was mostly buying American ETFs VTI and VXUS. It was my primal investing strategy. After moving to the European Union, I just started buying the one ETFs that I already mentioned, VWCA, and it's still my main strategy here. There are also excellent websites for ETFs on the Dutch market. They allow you to model your portfolio, check what's the expected returns for each one and which brokers have lowest fees. As you can see, my VWCA strategy is not the best, but it's just much easier to me to buy just one ETF instead of combining several. Apart from ETFs, I also have some cash, and as I mentioned already, they mostly stored on Trade Republic because they have highest interest rates, and my cash part is actually quite high now because I recently quit my job and I wanted to have a liquid part of the portfolio for easy access. I talked about this more in my video about quitting my job. In addition to that, I usually try to maintain some part of my portfolio as a cryptocurrencies. Usually it's Bitcoin and Ethereum. Right now my portfolio has 3% of crypto, but I'm thinking to increasing it to 5%. And I also has individual stocks here and there, but it's less than 1% of my portfolio. I hope you learned something useful today. Let me know if you're interested in the financial types of videos, what other topics you would like me to cover, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Check my other video about life in the Netherlands and see you in the next one. Doei doei!